What if it turned out that some of the most unbelievable moments in history weren't just random? They were mind-boggling coincidences. While many people insist there's no such thing as fate, history itself offers jaw-dropping examples that defy logic. Some of these events are so improbable, it's hard to believe they actually happened. But they did. And they've been recorded for us all to witness, reminding us that the world is far stranger than we often think. Poker. For some, the game is more than just cards and chips. It's a high-stakes showdown where skill, nerve, and fortune collide. At the top of this world stands Brian Kenny, the all-time poker earnings champion, with a staggering $655 million to his name. Anyone who has witnessed a high-stakes match knows how thick the tension gets, especially when only a few players remain in the running for the life-changing pot. But even the most intense games today pale in comparison to the brutal life-or-death stakes of the past. In 1858, Robert Fallon discovered just how deadly the game could be. During a high-stakes poker game with a $600 pot, a small fortune, in those days Fallon was on a hot streak. But when an opponent realized Fallon had been cheating, the situation took a violent turn. The details of his trickery remain unclear, but the response was immediate and deadly. Furious, the man drew a gun and shot Fallon dead, ending the game with a single shot. What followed was straight out of a Western. Witnesses were left stunned, but no one hesitated to continue the game. After Fallon was murdered mid-game, the remaining players decided to continue, unable to walk away from the large pot. They needed a replacement player, but no one dared to sit in Fallon's spot. A young man passing by heard about the money at stake and agreed to join, playing with Fallon's $600. He quickly multiplied it to $2,200, showing remarkable luck or skill. As police arrived, Fallon's killer was arrested, and officers ruled that Fallon's $600 should go to his next of kin. The twist? The young man who took Fallon's place was, unknowingly, Fallon's estranged son, abandoned 7 years prior. Without recognizing his father, he had come full circle, claiming both his father's money and a part of his legacy. Lightning. We've all heard, lightning never strikes the same place twice, but Casey Wagner's 2013 experience challenges that idea. While attending an off-road event in St. Joe, Texas, known as Rednecks with Paychecks, rain clouds rolled in and it started pouring. Casey took shelter under a tree while his friend went to the restroom, a choice he'd soon regret. Lightning struck him, causing sparks to fly, but he remained conscious. Before he could react, another bolt hit his boot. Thankfully, a nearby nurse rushed to his aid, and he fully recovered. Casey survived not one, but 2 lightning strikes. Even more astonishing is the story of Roy Sullivan, a Shenandoah National Park ranger in Virginia, struck by lightning 7 times. His first known strike occurred while he was young, cutting wheat with his father. In 1942, while fleeing a storm, he was hit in the leg. In 1969, lightning entered through his truck's window, knocking him unconscious. Strikes followed in 1970, 1972, 1973, burning his hair, and 1976 while hiking. After retiring, he moved to Dooms, Virginia, only to be struck once more while fishing, losing hearing in one ear. Roy's life is a testament to surviving the unimaginable. Roy holds the Guinness World Record for being struck by lightning the most times, 7. Most people think he was just incredibly unlucky, but his story continues to fascinate and puzzle many. While driving his truck, a lightning bolt came through the open window and knocked him out for about 15 minutes. The next year, lightning struck his shoulder, and in 1972, he got hit again while inside a ranger station, which singed his hair. After this, he always carried a bottle of water to douse any flames if he got struck again. He became paranoid, fearing he could be hit at any time. In 1973, lightning struck him as he was trying to escape a storm in his truck. He thought he had outrun it and got out of his truck, only to be hit again. 3 years later, in 1976, he was hit while walking on a trail near the lookout tower. By now, he was so wary of lightning strikes that after another hit, he quit his job as a ranger. He moved to Dooms, Virginia, with his wife, and one afternoon, while fishing, felt his hair stand on end and smelled sulfur. Lightning struck him on the head, causing him to lose hearing in one ear. Roy holds the Guinness World Record for being struck by lightning the most times. While many believe he attracted lightning, scientists insist his 7 strikes were just an unfortunate coincidence. Titanic and Titan. Few events in history are as infamous as the sinking of the RMS Titanic. On April 15, 1912, the opulent ship met its tragic fate when it struck an iceberg in the icy expanse of the North Atlantic, killing over 1,500 people. The disaster has been the subject of endless speculation and retellings. Yet, remarkably, a strikingly similar tragedy was foretold more than a decade earlier in a work of fiction by author Morgan Robertson. In 1898, Robertson, a seasoned sailor with a wealth of experience at sea, published Futility, a tale about a massive ocean liner named the Titan, which meets a tragic fate strikingly similar to that of the Titanic. The novel's ship was hailed as the largest and most luxurious liner ever built, and like the Titanic, it was deemed unsinkable. Just like the Titanic, the Titan carried only enough lifeboats to satisfy the bare minimum legal requirements, an oversight that would prove catastrophic when the ship struck an iceberg during its maiden voyage. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost as the Titan sank into the icy depths. What makes this eerie coincidence even more remarkable is the uncanny similarities between the Titan and the Titanic. The Titan was described as being just 83 feet shorter than the Titanic. Both ships boasted speeds of around 20 knots, and both collided with icebergs in mid-April. But perhaps the most chilling parallel was the fact that neither ship carried enough lifeboats for its passengers, a grave oversight that sealed the fate of thousands. After the Titanic disaster, many were quick to dub Robertson a prophet, believing his 1898 novel had predicted the events of April 1912. But scholars have a more grounded explanation. Robertson, who had spent much of his youth working on ships, was intimately familiar with the dangers posed by massive ocean liners. The advent of these larger ships, especially in iceberg-prone waters, must have struck him as a potential disaster waiting to happen. His novel, therefore, was less a supernatural prediction than an informed speculation about the risks of building unsinkable ships without adequate safety measures. The similarities between Robertson's novel and the Titanic disaster are striking yet likely coincidental. In the story, the focus shifts from the ship's sinking to 2 survivors, a lookout and a young girl struggling to survive in the Arctic. This suggests Robertson wasn't attempting to predict the future, but rather exploring broader survival themes. His knowledge of naval engineering may have helped him foresee potential dangers for large, unsinkable vessels. Ultimately, Titan's story highlights how life can sometimes eerily mirror art, though such coincidences are more fascinating than prophetic. Harry Hannon. In 1953, TV reporter Irving Kupcinet journeyed to London for Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. He was fortunate to stay at the prestigious Savoy Hotel during his visit. While in his room, Kupcinet made an unexpected discovery. Rummaging through the desk drawers, something most travelers rarely do, he came across several personal items belonging to a man named Harry Hannon. Kupcinet recognized the name immediately. Hannon was a member of the Harlem Globetrotters, and it felt oddly coincidental that he had stayed in the very same room. Kupcinet mentally noted to bring it up the next time they crossed paths. But before they had the chance to reconnect, an even stranger event occurred. Just 2 days later, Kupcinet received an unanticipated letter from Hannon. The message itself was even more shocking. Hannon explained that while touring with the Globetrotters, he had stayed at the Hotel Maurice in Paris. In his hotel room, Hannon, like Kupcinet, had decided to check the drawers. To his astonishment, he found a tie with Kupcinet's name on it. Kupcinet hadn't yet told Hannon about his discovery in London, so how could this have happened? The odds of both men staying in different hotels in different cities and each finding a personal item linked to the other were astronomically low, almost like a scene from a novel or a film. Sadly, it remains unclear whether Kupcinet ever told Hannon about his discovery. But we do know he was deeply struck by the coincidence. He couldn't help but share the remarkable story of their improbable connection hundreds of miles apart. Napoleon. Regardless of his fame, numerous aspects of Napoleon Bonaparte's life are less well-known aspects of his life that might surprise many. While he earned the nickname Little Corporal due to his perceived small stature, Napoleon was actually around 5'6", which was average for men of his period. The misunderstanding about his size may have originated from his preference for surrounding himself with taller soldiers, making him appear shorter in comparison. In addition, Napoleon had a peculiar aversion to doors being left open. He enforced a strict rule that anyone entering a room where he was present should only open the door as wide as necessary and shut it quickly behind them. His favorite dish was roast chicken, onions, and fried potatoes, though he ate in complete silence, finishing his meals in under 20 minutes. Remarkably, he only slept for around 4 hours each night, likely to maximize his productivity as he was famously driven and work-oriented. However, he was not particularly skilled with firearms and wasn't an accomplished rider either. A superstitious man, Napoleon believed that luck was a force influencing everyone's fate. This belief was reinforced by an event on December 24, 1800. That night, he, his wife, and several others, including his stepdaughter Josephine and his sister Caroline, were on their way to attend a theater performance featuring the composer Haydn's new work creation. On the night of a public event, Napoleon and his group, dressed and ready, were slightly delayed when General Rapp adjusted Josephine's shawl in an Egyptian style. With Napoleon's cavalry escorting them, their coach, driven recklessly by a drunken driver, sped towards the theater. Nearing their destination, a bomb intended to assassinate Napoleon exploded in a nearby carriage just after they passed, narrowly missing them. Though unharmed, they attended the performance briefly before leaving due to safety concerns. The attackers were later apprehended, and it's believed that without the initial delay, Napoleon might not have survived, potentially changing the course of history. Melanie. Flipping through the Daily Mail, Paul McCartney was drawn in by a captivating story about a 17-year-old girl who had mysteriously vanished after leaving her home one morning. The story struck a chord with McCartney, sparking the inspiration for one of the Beatles' most iconic songs, She's Leaving Home. The lyrics tell the poignant story of a young girl who, at dawn, leaves a note for her parents, announcing she's running away. Her mother, heartbroken, finds the letter, and the song unfolds as the girl embarks on a journey to meet a man far away. As the narrative progresses, the tone shifts to suggest that she is having fun, alluding to a troubled and unhappy home life that drove her to leave. The song was later featured on Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the Beatles' groundbreaking 8th album. Paul McCartney later shared that both he and John Lennon contributed to the song, with Paul inspired by news stories of young women vanishing. Lennon added depth with lines about parents giving children most of their lives, reflecting parental despair. An article about Melanie influenced McCartney, alongside the TV show The Wednesday Play, which tackled social issues and inspired the song's narrative. Melanie's unique link to the Beatles is unforgettable. At 14, she appeared on Ready Steady Go and won a contest judged by the band, receiving a signed album from Paul. Later, she was found safely with her boyfriend, leaving her brief Beatles encounter as one of pop music's surprising twists. Game Roy Burton. Unexpected events often happen in ways that defy explanation. Sometimes a random interaction or a seemingly trivial incident can ripple outward, affecting lives in profound ways, whether for better or worse. One example is when someone has a vivid dream about a person they haven't seen or thought of in years, only to unexpectedly cross paths with them soon after. These moments of serendipity occur all around the world, yet they often leave us scratching our heads, as they seem to carry some deeper significance we can't quite grasp. Whether these coincidences truly have hidden meanings or are simply random chance is still debated. But for those who experience them, there's often a sense of something greater at play. Roy Burton, a history professor and former Texas Ranger, shared a memorable story from his past with his students. In the 1940s, while patrolling the Rio Grande, he became lost in a canyon at dusk and attempted to climb a cliff to escape. Near the top, he slipped and almost fell to his death, but a fellow ranger, Joe, appeared just in time to save him by grabbing his rifle strap. Years later, while recounting this story to his class, Joe unexpectedly entered the room, reuniting with Burton at the precise moment he was reliving their shared experience. This remarkable coincidence has since intrigued those who study the mysteries of fate, hinting at life's sometimes inexplicable connections. Joseph Figlock. Some people seem cursed with bad luck, while others appear blessed by fortune. Joseph Figlock's story is a remarkable example of both, as he found himself involved in two extraordinary events that saved two lives. In Detroit in 1937, while working as a street sweeper, Figlock experienced the first of these bizarre coincidences. As he finished cleaning an alley, something suddenly struck him from above. At first, he thought he'd been hit by an object falling from a nearby building. But to his astonishment, he realized it was a baby that had fallen from a fourth-floor window. Though Figlock sustained injuries to his head and shoulders, he had miraculously broken the child's fall, saving the infant's life. Figlock's recovery was swift, and many viewed the incident as a miracle, marveling at the coincidence that placed him in precisely the right spot. Had he been even a few feet away, the outcome would have been tragically different. But the bizarre coincidences didn't stop there. The following year, on October 18, 1938, Joseph was once again working as a street sweeper, just finishing up his rounds near another apartment building. This time, a 2-year-old boy named David Thomas managed to slip away from his mother and crawled onto the windowsill of their apartment. The boy then lost his balance and fell, landing once again on Joseph's head and shoulders in the exact same way as the first child. Remarkably, both Joseph and the boy survived the fall without lasting injuries, and both made a full recovery. The chances of such an event happening twice to the same person are astronomically small, yet the incidents were widely reported in the newspapers at the time. In the end, the question remains, was Joseph simply unlucky enough to be struck in the same way on two separate occasions? Or were the two children lucky that he was in the right place at the right time to save them? Barbary Shaw. Being an author is challenging, with few writers able to support themselves solely through writing. Yet many pursue it for the joy of creating new worlds. For Norman Mailer, a Harvard graduate, an unexpected twist shaped his career. He became famous for his new journalism style, blending factual reporting with narrative storytelling. At just 25, Mailer was already known as a successful war novelist, but instead of continuing that path, he chose something different. In 1951, he published Barbary Shaw, which critics didn't like very much. They felt the book wasn't well written. The story is about a soldier named Mike Lovett, who has amnesia after being injured in World War II. He can't remember his past and ends up renting a room in a house in Brooklyn. At first, Mailer thought about adding a Russian spy to the story as a small part. But as he continued writing, the spy became a bigger and more important character. Norman Mailer later shared that while writing, he felt as though he wasn't fully in control, as if ideas were coming from an external source. He even speculated that people might unconsciously receive ideas, possibly through telepathy. This notion intrigued him further after a strange coincidence involving his book Barbary Shaw. Shortly after its release, he learned that Colonel Rudolf Abel, a Russian spy, had been arrested and had been living in the same building as Mailer during the writing process. Mailer found it uncanny that he had written about a Russian spy, only to discover he'd been living near one, leading him to believe his subconscious may have sensed something he hadn't consciously recognized. Space. Extraordinary coincidences weave through the natural world, many of which go unnoticed, yet play a crucial role in shaping life as we know it. One such marvel is the behavior of water. When it freezes, it becomes less dense, causing ice to float rather than sink. This may seem like a small, insignificant detail, but without it, lakes and large bodies of water would freeze from the bottom up, trapping aquatic life beneath solid ice and rendering survival impossible for many species. For years, climbers believed summiting Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen was impossible, until Reinhold Messner proved otherwise. His ascent demonstrated that Everest's peak is at the very edge of human endurance for breathing unassisted. If the mountain were only a few hundred feet taller, it would likely exceed human limits, an unlikely coincidence aligning with the altitude of the world's highest peak. In a cosmic parallel, an equally rare alignment exists with the Moon and Sun. Though the Sun is about 400 times larger in diameter than the Moon, it's also about 400 times farther from Earth, causing them to appear the same size from our perspective. This precise alignment is most striking during a total solar eclipse, when the Moon fully covers the Sun. This phenomenon is unique to Earth. Finding another cosmic alignment like this is nearly impossible to calculate. Yet the vastness of space leaves the possibility open. The curse. Tensions rose in the early 1800s when the governor of the Indiana Territory negotiated a treaty with the Shawnee, resulting in the cession of large portions of their land to the US government. However, it quickly became apparent that the treaty had been secured through questionable tactics, enraging Shawnee leader Tecumseh. In retaliation, Tecumseh and his brother Tenskwatawa gathered warriors from neighboring tribes and launched an attack on Harrison's forces, leading to the Battle of Tippecanoe. Harrison's troops emerged victorious, a win that boosted his military reputation. His prominence grew further during the War of 1812 when he defeated British forces and their native allies, securing more territory for the United States. In response, it is said that Tenskwatawa placed a curse on all US presidents elected in years ending in 0, a superstition that, though largely dismissed, would later appear to hold a chilling resonance in the years to come. In 1841, President Harrison delivered a lengthy inaugural address in bad weather, caught a cold, and died a month later, sparking the idea of a presidential curse. Nearly 20 years later, Lincoln, elected in 1860, was assassinated in 1865. In 1880, President Garfield was shot and died within 6 months. The curse appeared again when McKinley, re-elected in 1900, was assassinated in 1901. Harding, elected in 1920, died suddenly in 1923. Roosevelt, elected to a third term in 1940, passed away from a brain hemorrhage in 1945. Kennedy, elected in 1960, was assassinated in 1963. Reagan, elected in 1980, survived an assassination attempt, leading many to believe the curse was broken. While some attribute these tragedies to the so-called Tippecanoe curse, others consider them mere coincidences. Hitler-Napoleon. Ambitions of conquering Europe drove two leaders down remarkably similar paths, filled with great triumphs followed by crushing defeats. Rising to power while still young, they both reached extraordinary heights, only to see their empires crumble as their military campaigns faltered. Russia became a key target in their plans, and astonishingly, both managed to seize the same city on the very same day, June 24th. Their journeys, though separated by time, share an uncanny resemblance that cannot be ignored. What's even more uncanny is how their lives seem to mirror each other in nearly every detail. Their rise to power, their military strategies, and even the timing of their major events often lined up in strange ways. Both leaders were born in different countries from the ones they ruled, yet they managed to gain control of mighty empires. They were also similar in appearance. Both were considered short by average standards. The numbers surrounding their lives, from their birth dates to key moments of victory and defeat, were connected by a 129-year gap. This was not just coincidence, it felt like destiny. Of course, some might say these parallels are purely accidental, the result of history repeating itself in unexpected ways. But for those who are fascinated by such patterns, these similarities seem too striking to ignore. They leave many wondering. Could these men, so closely tied by fate, have been destined to follow the same tragic arc? Or are they simply two figures in history whose paths happen to cross in strange and unsettling ways? Cushion. Funny how coincidences work, right? They can go unnoticed for years, sometimes even decades, until something brings them to light. Maybe two childhood friends find out they went to the same school but never met. Or separated twins discover they share the same name. It could even be as crazy as running into someone from years ago at a car accident. Life has a way of surprising us like that. One of the most mind-blowing examples of this happened in Chengdu, China. A couple, Shui and Ye, had just gotten married. The wedding went off without a hitch, and they started their life together, eventually having kids. Ye later shared that his wife had often talked about visiting May 4th Square in Chengdu when she was younger. She even had fond memories of the place from over a decade ago. Then one day, while visiting Shui's parents, they decided to look through some old family photos. What they found left them speechless. It was one of those no-way moments. In one photo, Shu is sitting on a small concrete structure in front of May 4th Square. She's smiling at the camera, and in the background you can clearly see the iconic structure that stands in the square. But when Ye saw the photo, he did a double take. He was the one standing in the background. It turned out that on the same day Shui was there, he had been there too. But what made this even crazier was the pose Ye was striking. He had asked someone to take his picture. At that exact same moment, Shu's mum snapped her picture of Shu. It was a pose he always did, one of those signature stances you never forget. And sure enough, the people sitting on the low wall in the background of Shu's photo were the same people in his. Ye was floored when he realized that he was the man in the background of Shu's photo. It was wild to think they'd been at the same place at the same time without even knowing it. When they told their friends about it, everyone agreed it was a sign they were meant to be together. But for Ye and Shu, it's not just a sign, it's a miracle. They now see the May 4th square as a special place, a reminder that fate somehow brought them together. Superman. One of the most famous superheroes, Superman is nearly indestructible, with only kryptonite, a fictional green substance from his home planet, Krypton, being able to weaken him. First appearing in Action Comics #1 in June 1938, the comic became immensely valuable, with one copy selling for $6 million in April 2024. Created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, Superman's success didn't bring them significant royalties. Shuster, suffering from failing eyesight, had to leave the industry by the 1950s, nearly blind. This misfortune led to the so-called Superman curse. In 1941, animators Max and Dave Fleischer made Superman cartoons but dissolved their partnership, with Max eventually ending up penniless. Kirk Alyn, the first TV Superman, struggled to find roles after playing the superhero in 2 serials between 1948 and 1950. George Reeves, who succeeded Alyn, enjoyed success until his mysterious death in 1959. Christopher Reeve brought Superman to the big screen from 1978 to 1987, but became paralyzed in a 1995 horse-riding accident and died in 2004. His wife Dana died of lung cancer in 2006. Other cast members faced misfortunes too. Lee Quigley, baby Superman, died from addiction. Margot Kidder, Lois Lane, had a severe car accident and later lived on the streets before recovering. Marlon Brando, Jor-El, saw his family suffer numerous tragedies, including his son going to prison. During the production of 2006's Superman Returns, crew members faced various accidents. These incidents have fueled the legend of the Superman curse, which remains a topic of intrigue. Romulus Augustus. On October 31st, 475, Romulus Augustus began his reign as the Emperor of the Western Roman Empire. His rule lasted until September 4th, 476. His time as emperor was far from stable, and he was regarded by many as a mere usurper. The young ruler, mockingly nicknamed Momulus, or Little Disgrace due to his name, was set up by his father Orestes, a former notary to Attila the Hun and a senior military leader. Orestes, who had recently deposed Emperor Julius Nepos, could have claimed the throne himself, but instead placed his son, Romulus, on the throne. At the time, Romulus was likely only 14 years old, though some sources suggest he may have been as young as 10. Despite sharing his name with Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome, and Augustus, its first emperor, Romulus Augustus never wielded real power. His nickname, Augustulus, meaning Little Augustus, captured the diminished nature of his role. His reign marked the final chapter of the Western Roman Empire's collapse, with little influence in politics or governance. His image appeared on a few coins minted in Rome, Milan, and Ravenna, yet his army was decimated, and his imperial regalia was reportedly sent to Emperor Zeno in the Eastern Empire, possibly along with a forced letter of abdication. Remarkably, Romulus was spared execution, perhaps due to his youth and disinterest in the power that had been thrust upon him. Instead, he was granted a comfortable retirement, receiving a generous pension and an estate in Campania. After this, Romulus Augustus vanished from historical records, though a letter from Theodoric the Great hints he may have lived until 507, possibly reaching the age of 70. Today, Romulus Augustus is remembered less for his reign and more for the symbolic convergence of his name. Romulus, the founder of Rome, and Augustus, its first emperor, as the very last ruler of the Western Roman Empire. This coincidence, more than any act of power or governance, is his enduring legacy. Enzo Ferrari. Running into your doppelganger, someone who looks exactly like you, can be a creepy, almost unreal experience. Imagine looking up and seeing someone who is your perfect twin, as if you're staring into a mirror that doesn't actually exist. Over the years, countless stories have surfaced about people crossing paths with their lookalikes in the most bizarre and unexpected places. One of the most unforgettable stories is about a man who ran into his doppelganger while boarding a flight. They struck up a conversation and quickly realized they had so much in common. But after the plane touched down, they parted ways, only for the night to take an eerie twist. Later that evening, one of the men walked into a bar at his vacation spot, only to find his exact double sitting there, as if fate had reunited them. They had both left the airport, driven to their hotels, and somehow ended up at the same bar hours later. While some dismiss it as pure coincidence, others can't help but feel that destiny might have played a hand in bringing them. Some stories suggest that people might seem like the reincarnation of a lost loved one, sharing not only similar personalities and interests, but even identical mannerisms. These individuals might favor the same foods, styles, and sometimes even exhibit a familiar voice tone, as though they're somehow channeling the essence of someone who has passed. One particularly intriguing example is the resemblance between Enzo Ferrari, the founder of Ferrari, and Mesut Özil, the German football star. Ferrari, born in 1898, became a motorsport icon, creating a brand synonymous with speed and innovation. He passed away in August 1988, leaving an indelible legacy in the world of racing. Just 2 months later, on October 15, 1988, Mesut Özil was born in Germany. Rising to global fame, Özil dazzled fans with his skill on the football field, making 254 appearances for Arsenal and contributing 44 goals before retiring in 2023. The uncanny similarity in appearance between Özil and Ferrari has sparked curiosity, as though he is somehow carrying on Ferrari's spirit. Whether mere coincidence or something deeper, this connection remains a captivating mystery. Will West. Fingerprinting, a crucial tool in modern crime solving, was first used in America in 1902. Before this, criminals could more easily evade capture, especially if there were no witnesses. This became especially problematic when two men with identical names and appearances were booked into the same prison within 2 years of each other. In 1903, when Will West arrived at Kansas's Leavenworth Penitentiary, a prison clerk recognized his name and photo, recalling booking an identical man 2 years earlier. Puzzled, the clerk asked West why he was back, but West claimed he had never been in prison before. The clerk, still suspicious, took West's physical measurements, the only reliable identification method other than photographs. To his astonishment, West's measurements matched those on record for the previous Will West. Determined to resolve this mystery, the clerk investigated further. He found that two men, both named Will West, with nearly identical physical features and no relation, had been booked into the same prison. The first, Will West, arrested in 1901, was convicted of a serious crime. Despite their likeness and identical names, the two men had no prior knowledge of each other's existence. This baffling case exposed flaws in the measurement-based identification system. The incident accelerated the adoption of fingerprinting, a far more accurate identification method. While Indiana had used palm prints since 1858 for document verification, Leavenworth was among the first American prisons to adopt fingerprinting for criminal identification. Today, over 120 years later, fingerprinting remains a cornerstone of forensic science, largely due to the confusion caused by the two Will Wests and the realization that unique fingerprints offered an infallible means of identifying individuals. Cricket. Cricket, though less popular in the United States, has a massive global fan base, ranking as the world's second most popular sport after football. Originating in England, cricket spread through British colonialism and is now passionately followed in regions like India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and the West Indies. With around 2 billion active players, the sport's appeal spans all levels of participation. Cricket's rules and formats can be complex for newcomers. Test matches can last up to 5 days, while one-day matches run about 7 hours, and the shortest, T20, takes around 4 hours. Like baseball, cricket is a sport rich in statistics, with fans meticulously tracking a batsman's career average, a bowler's economy rate, and fielding stats. This data-focused culture led to the discovery of one of cricket's most fascinating coincidences: a testament to the sport's intricate and engaging nature. As of 2013, only 80 cricketers had played 100 test matches for their country. On August 1, 2013, both Michael Clarke of Australia and Alistair Cook of England reached this milestone in the same match. However, the coincidences didn't end there. The game was heavily impacted by rain, ending in a draw and allowing England to win the series and retain the Ashes, an ongoing contest between the two nations, played every 2 years. The match concluded with an incredible coincidence that stunned viewers and broadcasters alike. Clarke ended his career with 7,964 runs, while Cook had 7,955, bringing their combined total to 15,919 runs. The exact number of test matches they played together, 200. The symmetry continued. Cook had scored 25 centuries and Clarke had 26, totaling 51 centuries. This fascinating detail was even more striking when compared with India's cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar, who also played 200 test matches and scored 15,928 runs. The almost identical figures between Tendulkar and the combined total of Clarke and Cook emerged as one of the most fascinating coincidences in cricket history. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Also, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss an update on our future videos.